This is episode 19 of the Expert Table Tennis Podcast with me, Ben Larcombe, and my guest on today's show is the incredible Jesper Ratzer. Jesper is the world number one at Racketlon, and he has been so since October 2012, so almost 3 years as the number one in the sport. He's also got 6 world championship titles under his belt, so he is arguably, well, not even arguably, he is the best male racquetlon player in the world at the moment. And it's brilliant to have him on the show, find out a bit more about how he managed to get to that level, and in particular, how he managed to improve his table tennis, which was something that he never played as a kid. And obviously he had to improve very quickly in order to be able to compete at the highest level of racquetlon with players that were much more experienced in the sport. Huge thank you to Jesper for coming on the show. This was a really, really good interview. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. Let's get straight into the interview with Jesper Ratzer. Joining me on the show today is Jesper Ratzer. Hi, Jesper.
Hi, Ben.
Welcome to the show. It's really great to have you on.
Thank you.
Now, for those of us who aren't that aware with what it is that you do, could you give us a little bit of an intro about yourself, how old you are, where you're from, and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, I'm 33 years old, and I live in Copenhagen in the lovely country of Denmark, and I work as a doctor. I'm in residency for neurology, and I'm becoming a neurologist in a little less than a year.
Okay, so you're going along that kind of long training process to become a fully qualified doctor.
Yeah, it takes 4.5 years, and that's kind of the education I'm going through right now, you can call it.
Cool. And on top of all that, the reason you're on the show is that you are the world champion and the world number one at Racketlon, aren't you?
Yes, that is correct.
Pretty impressive. Now, I realise that a lot of the listeners on this show perhaps haven't heard of Racketlon or don't even know what it is. Would you be able to just give us a brief rundown as to what Racketlon is, when it was created, and what kind of makes up the sport?
Sure. Well, basically, the whole idea of Racketlon is that you take the 4 biggest racket sports, which is table tennis, badminton, squash, and tennis, and then you play against. Let's say I play against you, then we play to 21 points in each discipline, and then basically just add up all the points, and the winner is the one with the most points, or is in a plus difference after the 4 disciplines.
Okay, so I mean, technically, you could win one match by 21-0 and then lose the other 3 and still win the match overall. Is that how it works?
Yeah. It's all about the how many points you get. So you can easily lose very big in one sport and still make a comeback. You can even lose 3 sports and win big in one and end up winning the match. It doesn't matter. It basically doesn't matter who wins who wins one set. It's who wins the entire match.
Yeah. So it's literally every point counts.
Exactly. And it's running score, and you serve 2 times. Every player serves 2 times, and then the serve changes.
And I mean, how does it work going from sport to sport? Do you just have to find a venue that has the facilities to do all of that in a very close space?
Yes, we usually play tournaments in racket centers. So you just, whenever you're done with let's say a table tennis set, then you have a couple of minutes to change and a couple of minutes to warm up in the next discipline, which would be badminton, and then you play the next set.
Okay, so how long does a match take roughly?
It depends on the level difference, but usually around an hour or so.
Right, and how many would you play in a day?
Usually you play. I would say 4 to 5 matches a day if you play both mixed doubles, and singles. But usually you have 2 to 3 singles matches in a day.
Right. Is it pretty knackering?
What did you say?
I said, is it pretty knackering, pretty hard work?
Yeah, it depends on the level difference between the players. But if you play 4 or 5 tight matches in one day, then it gets really physical, especially if the badminton and squash is even. Then you get to run a lot.
Yeah. And table tennis is always the first one, is it?
Yeah, table tennis is always the first. the order is from small racket to big racket, so it's always table tennis, badminton, squash, and then tennis in the end.
Ah, I see. Okay, cool. And this is quite a growing sport, isn't it? Worldwide, different countries picking it up and new federations and things.
I'm not sure about that actually. I heard that some years ago it was a very fast growing sport, but I haven't heard the last numbers. I mean, I have a feeling that it's kind of stagnating, but I don't know for sure actually.
Oh, okay. I mean, you're out there in Denmark. Is it pretty popular in Denmark?
In Denmark, it's most certainly growing. I think. I mean, 5 years ago, there was one player from Denmark. A couple of years later, we were five, and then it was 25, and now we have a lot of active players who goes to a lot of tournaments.
Mm. Yeah, because I looked on the world ranking list, and it was almost all red and white countries. You had Denmark, Austria, England, all the kind of countries' flags. It seemed to really be dominated by those places.
Yeah, it's popular in the German, mostly in the German-speaking countries, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, but also the UK is also one of the countries that are still growing. We also have a couple of players from Turkey and one player from New Zealand, and there's some action going on in Canada as well. They have big tournaments over there too.
So, do you manage to get outside of Europe for tournaments? Is there like a world tour that goes around?
Well, they call it a world tour, but it's primarily European tournaments. But there are some
Okay.
tournaments in Canada as well. I've never been to Canada to play Racketlon though.
Is it kind of all self-funded?
Yes, it's completely self-funded.
Yeah, so it'd be pretty expensive to be going over to Canada or anywhere outside of Europe.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Is that something that's changing? Is there kind of more prize money, or like you said, it was pretty stagnant? Does it seem like it's staying about the
Um,
same?
I think it's pretty stable. I think for the 4 years that I've been winning tournaments, I think the prize money has been pretty stable. I was
Okay,
at Austrian Open last weekend, and I won 700 euros for the first place.
okay,
And I mean that's about the level, and I think that's been pretty stable for the last 4 or 5 years.
yeah. So it's like it's kind of it's some money, but it's not really representative of being the best player in the world.
No, it's enough so that it covers your expenses, but not much more than that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that will grow
Yeah,
if it
hopefully.
gets a bit more popular. Yeah. Right. So I'd love to go back to talking about kind of the sports that you played as a kid. I believe that you were a badminton player mainly. Is that right?
Uh, yeah, but well, as a child, I was both a tennis player and a badminton player. I played in the summer, I played tennis, and in the winter, I played badminton. So it was pretty even between these two. My father was a tennis coach, so I trained a lot with him, and he was kind of correcting my technique and stuff like that. And then I played in a club in badminton in the winter. Yeah, and I think I was a pretty talented kid. I grew up in a small island, and I was the island champion, if you say so,
Okay.
in both badminton and tennis. So I think I was pretty skillful as a child.
And did you feel like you were kind of a bit of a natural at those? You always picked up racket sports quite easily.
Yeah, but just I think in sports in general, I also played a lot of soccer, and I was also picked for the kind of the union team in soccer. So I think in sports in general, I was doing pretty good as a child.
Did you reach any kind of particular level in your badminton and your tennis? Did you manage to play regionally or internationally or anything like that?
Uh, no, I played mostly local tournaments, and later, later when I got a little older, I traveled to kind of well away from the island and started in a badminton school. Um, I think I was 16 at that point. Uh, and that's basically when I started improving a lot because there was not a lot of good players on the small island. So I think my early years wasn't perfect because I didn't get enough. I didn't play against a lot of good players on the small island.
Mm. Yeah, because badminton's relatively similar to table tennis, isn't it? In the sense that I believe that lots of kids start very young and they do it in China as well, and they just play loads and loads of badminton from a really young age.
Yeah, actually, badminton and table tennis is well, in Racketlon it's usually the two sports that people have. Uh, well, let me put it this way: if you're a badminton player, you usually have a hard time playing table tennis. If you're a table tennis player, you usually have a hard time playing badminton. It's
Okay.
actually the two sports that are probably furthest away, I think.
And why do you think that is?
Mm, well, first of all, in badminton, you have a lot of kind of wrist action, and also you jump a lot. And in table tennis, and in badminton, you have absolutely no spin, so you're so not prepared for the spin.
Yep.
And in table tennis, you're used to hitting all shots in front of your body or in the side of your body, so you're not used to hitting shots with. I mean, hitting shuttles over your head, and you're not used to the rotations going on in badminton. So yeah, I think that it's pretty different actually.
Yeah, just lots of different movements and stuff like that. Did you manage to play any table tennis when you were a kid?
I had a table tennis table in my parents' garage, but I didn't play that much, and yeah, I didn't have any good players to play with. And looking back, and I can see that the rubbers we were using was, I mean, non-existing basically. There was no grip in the rubbers, so I mean, you can't really develop good technique with if you don't have the right equipment.
Yeah, so it was more just kind of tap tap ping pong
Yeah,
over the net
yeah,
instead of
something like
yeah.
that.
Right. So then when was it that you first became involved in Racketlon and how did that happen?
Um, in my old badminton club, there was some guys who built the first paddle tennis court in Denmark, and they invited me to come play. And I don't know if you know about paddle tennis, but it has elements from both badminton, tennis, and squash actually. And
Okay.
and playing that sport, we were kind of talking about, oh, it would be awesome if there was a sport where you actually play uh, squash and tennis and badminton separately. And then this guy, for some reason, he knew about racketlon, and he said, oh, that sport does exist. It's called racketlon. So it was completely random. And then I went home and did a search for it and found out that it actually did exist.
And were there already tournaments in Denmark or did you have to kind of go abroad to play it?
At that point in time, it was completely non-existent in Denmark. There was one Danish player at that time who were going to tournaments.
Right. So then did you straight away start practicing all the different sports or what did you decide to do?
Yeah, I think actually I signed up for a table tennis club and a squash club just immediately almost, and just started training because well, the first thing I did was to go to YouTube and find the final from, I think it was 2009, the World Championship final of 2009, and I looked at the level and I thought, I think I can beat these guys.
Yeah, because I guess if you've played a lot of badminton and tennis, so you're looking at that and thinking these guys aren't badminton and
They are
tennis
well.
specialists like
I
they're
was pretty sure I could beat them in badminton, and I was also pretty sure that I could beat them in tennis. So my way of thinking was, okay, I can beat them in two disciplines already. I just have to practice a little bit in my two worst ones, and then I can at least play even with them. So that was kind of my approach, which later turned out to be very wrong. But
Yeah, so tell us about what happened at your first tournament then.
I played the first tournament. I applied a wild card for the A, and I didn't get it because they haven't seen me play.
So A is like the main event kind
Yeah,
of
the
thing.
the A the A draw is kind of where the best players are playing, and I applied for that
Okay.
one, and I didn't get it. And the same, my training partner, he did the same, and we were kind of mad because we didn't get into the best draw. And
So you thought that you deserved to be
yeah,
in the top thing, yeah.
exactly. And then then we kind of sent in a complaint mail where we were writing about how good we were in table tennis. And then we started out, and my training partner, he was 16-0 behind in the first table tennis match.
Oh, really?
This was one guy doing a tomahawk serve with topspin to his forehand, and it just flew into the air every time.
Okay, so both of you had thought that you would be able to at least get, a few points in table tennis and then make up for it in the rest, but it just didn't really turn out
thought
like
we
that.
were gonna win like half of our table tennis matches, and
Okay.
it was nowhere near. I played against a Dutch guy in the first round, and my math coming from home was that if I can just get around 10 points in table tennis, then I'm gonna win the match because I'm gonna beat him bigger in tennis and badminton. So
Yeah.
10 points, that's the success criteria. And I remember actually it was 10 all in table tennis, and I remember thinking, I kind of laughing inside of my head, like, oh, I already won the match, ish. And then I lost 10 points in a row, and badminton was horrible, tennis was horrible, and he just beat me in squash, so I lost the match.
Right. So how come the badminton and stuff was so bad then?
um, when you're used to playing badminton at a competitive level, you kind of do a lot of risky shots, and you're not used to playing safe. And
Yep.
when you play players that are a lot worse than yourself, there's no use to doing a lot of risky shots. So you kind of have to adapt to who you're playing against, and you're not used to doing that. If you're only used to playing against good players, you're gonna do automated shots that are kind of close to the net or close to the line, stuff like that. So this guy, for example, he got 13 points against me in badminton, and I think if I
Mm.
played him now, he would probably get one or two.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, especially when every point is so crucial.
Exactly.
It must be difficult to actually to come out of your comfort zone because you want to just keep the rally going, don't you? Not lose the point.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important that you have a good idea about the level of your opponent so that you can adapt how risky shots you're gonna make. And the same goes for table tennis. If you're playing against someone who doesn't understand spin at all or can't do any safe shots, then there's no reason to attack all the time. You can just push to him slowly, and then he's gonna miss basically.
Yeah, and that gives you much better chance of beating him kind of 21-0 than it does trying to go out there and play all your best
Exactly.
shots and
Exactly.
keep losing points to
Yeah.
him.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's relevant to all levels of sport, I guess, when you're playing one on one against someone else, especially if they're such a big difference in level between the two of you.
Yeah, but usually it doesn't matter as long as you can win a couple of points more than the other guy. You're gonna win the match, right? So
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you win 21-19 or 21-0, whereas in Racketlon it
it
does.
really does matter in Racketlon. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a different mindset. So very quickly you managed to actually get yourself from that bad first tournament in 2010 to in October 2012 you became the world number one. So how did you change that around so fast in just 2 years?
Um. Yeah. Well, I pretty much stopped training badminton and tennis because uh, I wanted to make my profile as even as possible so that my worst sports was as good as my best. So I just started training table tennis a lot and squash a lot, and yeah, trying to focus on creating good training environments, registering in a club, trying to play against better players all the time. Yeah, and just learning the basic techniques, and yeah, just everything you would do in order to get better.
Right. So you really focused on the table tennis and the squash and kind of
Yes.
ignored the other two, yeah, because you already had those.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us about the kind of training that you were doing for your table tennis in particular. You said you joined a club. What kind of things did you start off doing?
Uh, I think my approach was to get the basic techniques right in the beginning, so that you don't train a lot of shots with bad technique.
So is
So
that just the basic strokes and things like that?
yeah, I mean, a lot of players when they start training table tennis or when they play matches, they were kind of pushing underspin all the time. But I was kind of looping on everything
Yep.
right from the beginning and missing and missing and missing. But I kind of wanted to play correct table tennis right from the beginning.
Yeah, so you don't develop bad habits and things like that.
Yeah, I just wanted to learn to play table tennis the right way. So I was kind of doing short returns, looping on half long shots and stuff like that. Even though I was missing all the time, but I just kept on doing it because I knew it was going to be good for me in the long run.
Yeah, and did you have a point where that all of a sudden seemed to kind of click together and suddenly things were going on, or was it just kind of a slow, steady progress where you went from missing all these shots to slowly they started to go on a bit more?
I wouldn't say there's a definite point. I think it was gradual, but also, I mean, what you experience is that you can pretty easily get some drills going. I mean, especially if you're a tennis player, it doesn't take you long to be able to loop and then get some drills going where someone is blocking you and you're kind of looping a lot of times. But what was experiencing was that whenever I was going to play a match, then my opponent was just going to serve me out all the time. I wasn't able to read the spin. So I think you need more than the basic technique. You also need an eye for the game. Being able to read the spin is a lot harder than you would think when you're a table tennis player, and it's just natural for you. But when you're not, it's very hard to see what people are doing when they're serving and stuff.
Yeah, because it's no good if you're brilliant at looping and rallying, but then you never get past the serve and the return.
Exactly, exactly. And some guys are when just a normal push. Some people just do it without any spin, and some people do it with a lot of spin. And if you don't read that, then you're gonna miss the loop also.
Yeah, yeah, you got it. Yeah, so how did you kind of really get your head around what spins on the ball and reading serves and all of that? Because that is the difference between table tennis and the other sports, is just the amount of spin that's
Yes.
put on each shot, the kind of crazy rotation that you get. How did you manage to get your head around that, coming from sports where, I mean, in tennis, if you play a topspin in tennis, you kind of have to play it slightly underneath the ball coming
Yeah.
up, don't you? Whereas table tennis, you can hit the ball almost completely at 12 o'clock right on top of it just because of the spin. How did you manage to
Yes.
master that?
Mm, I think in the beginning I was trying to build up some systems. Kind of if he hits the ball on that side, I also have to hit it on that side and stuff like that. But I think actually it's what helped me start to read spin better was actually just playing against a lot of different players with a lot of different weird serves. So I think it's what really helped me was the pattern recognition, or at least the thing that got me fluent, so that I don't have to think that much about what kind of spin is in it. Was just basically playing against a lot of different weird serves.
Yeah, so you just kind of absorbed it all in naturally and it slowly started to make sense to you.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you because I know I've barely played tennis at all. I've played a little bit of badminton and squash, but if I ever try and play tennis, I'm so used to trying to hit the top of the ball that it's just a bit of a nightmare. I end up just having to slice everything.
Yeah.
Do you have any problems now that you've learned techniques for one sport and you've got other techniques for other sports? Are you able to separate them out, or do you sometimes get confused with what you're doing?
There's some slight confusions going on at times, but it's usually in the sports that I don't play that much. For example, in tennis, which is probably the sport that I train the least, sometimes I do some weird squash movements with my feet in the backhand. And also in table tennis, sometimes I do some weird crossover footwork from tennis when I have to reach it in the forehand and stuff. So there's some small confusions going on, but in stuff like racket angle and stuff like that doesn't really confuse me that much.
Okay. How did your table tennis compare to some of the other top players that you end up coming up against in the tournaments? Is table tennis now pretty strong for you, or is it still a weakness?
Um, I think it's pretty much the same. The guys that I'm competing with, the guys that are able to beat me, they have table tennis. They have a table tennis level that's around my level, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, but I would still say that it's my weakness because it's the most fragile of the four sports. Take for example my training partner and probably my biggest competitor. I've beat him 21-7 and lost 21-11. That's the kind of range that we've been going through.
Okay, so you can be quite hit and miss with the table tennis.
Exactly, that's a lot of points going on from 21-7 to 11-21 defeat. That's a lot of points you lose there.
Why do you think that is? Because I feel like this is something that a lot of table tennis players struggle with is, huge variability in how well they're able to play one day to the next.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it takes a lot of fine motorical skills, and I think fine motorical skills is probably influenced by a lot of nervousness or a lot of other factors. Whereas in badminton and squash, you don't get as nervous because you can kind of run, you can kind of fight your way back in a match and stuff like that. You can't really fight your way back in a table tennis match. And sometimes just one difficult serve is going to do a lot of points. If you struggle with returning just one type of serve, you can get a lot of trouble in just one set to 21.
Do you feel like you now have a greater respect for table tennis than you did before you played it? Because I know a lot of tennis players, squash players, think that table tennis is a bit of a joke. Like, how did your view change after experiencing it?
I mean, my view changed the first time I got to hold a real table tennis racket. That was the first time I found respect for the sport because it felt like the ball was just shooting away from my racket like a rocket. It felt like it was impossible to control because I didn't know all the right angles. But I mean, I have a lot of respect for table tennis players. I think of the four, I think it's the most technical, difficult sport. There's so many technical nuances, and you can basically hit any shot in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a very technical sport, that's for sure.
Yeah, it certainly seems like with table tennis, the gap between the recreational player and the competitive player is the biggest of all the racket sports. Like, it's just a completely different game. The people that are playing it for fun, just with a dead bat in their basement, to the people that are playing it in tournaments around the country. Like that, there's just, they can't understand what each other are going through at
No,
all.
it's two different sports, I would say, almost.
Yeah, which makes it not the best thing to try and get into because you've got to completely relearn much of what you've been doing, even if you've been playing the kind of fun ping pong for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot of Racketlon players who come with kind of diluted thoughts about how good they are. Oh, they played a little bit at work, and they're the champion at work, and they played with these non-sticky rubbers, and then they play against just me, and then they're unable to take one serve.
Yeah, it's just completely different. How does like your table tennis? Have you started playing in just specific table tennis tournaments and leagues, or do you only play table tennis for Racketlon?
I've actually never played a table tennis tournament, but I've played a lot of team matches. We played.
Okay,
We applied for a team in the fourth best national league with a Racketlon Denmark team actually. So we
right.
have a team that plays in the fourth best national league, which only consists of Racketlon players,
Right.
and that's been the best thing for our development for sure, because that's where you meet all these uh, players with weird rubbers and weird serves and weird playing styles, and yeah, it
Do you
was a
find
good
yourself
experience.
coming up against a load of like young children that are really good?
There's some youth players as well, but mostly it's guys who are in the 30s or 40s.
Okay. Have you got a ranking in Denmark for table tennis?
Yeah, I do. I think but I don't know. I think I'm ranked somewhere between 200 and 300 or something like that.
Okay, cool. And from what I know, I think Denmark is relatively similar in level to England for table tennis, I believe.
Okay, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, but so I think people that are listening will be able to work out roughly what that means.
Okay.
Okay, so thinking about your table tennis, did you find that there were anything that really transferred from your badminton and your tennis into your table tennis that you think gave you a head start over people that hadn't played other sports?
I think you can use a lot of skills from tennis. The forehand loop is, well, you can use some stuff from tennis there. Also, the fact that the ball bounces gives you a little bit coordination, I think, from tennis. And well, you're kind of used to a little bit of spin from tennis as well. So tennis is obviously the thing that helps you a lot. I think badminton doesn't really help you in any way other than that it gives you some physique to move around the table.
Yeah.
In squash, I don't think squash helps you that much either.
Okay, so it's mainly tennis that transfers over.
Yeah.
And what would you say are your strengths and weaknesses when you're playing in your table tennis matches?
I'm a very aggressive player. When I'm playing very well, it's hard to get to attack me because I do a lot of short returns and loop on half long shots, and I'm just in general very very aggressive, and I do short serves all the time also. So yeah, some players have a hard time to just being able to attack against me, and I think that's my strength.
Have you had quite a lot of coaching? Because that sounds pretty like textbook table tennis technique, kind of what you should be doing for someone.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that's my own philosophy because I wanted to play real table tennis, basically like I saw on YouTube or on television right from the beginning, and I understood why that was effectful to do short returns and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a reason why all the top players play in like a similar way.
Exactly, and some of the good Racketlon players who used to be table tennis players has guided me and kind of taught me some playing systems, and yeah, and then in the clubs I've had some good coaches too. In the beginning, I was paying one of the best table tennis players in Denmark, and he was helping me out doing China feeding and stuff like that. And now I have a good connection with my trainer. Every Wednesday there's a club training where he kind of looks at my technique and trying to correct stuff.
What kind of things are you working to correct at the moment then?
Right now I'm working on getting my point of what do you call that? Where I hit the ball. I'm trying to push that a little bit more forward.
Okay, so you're taking the ball a bit more in front of you.
Yeah, that's what he's kind of saying to me all the time, and well, that's what he wants me to correct. I can't really feel that actually.
Right.
What I'm working at myself right now is it's kind of I have a little bit too much backhand grip. So my forehand grip is pretty universal, but then I have a pretty extreme backhand grip, and that kind of gives me trouble sometimes in when I don't know where the ball is coming.
Right. So you're switching grip for forehand and backhand.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So I'm working on kind of some solutions for that, when to switch and when not to switch and stuff like that.
Is that something that you do in tennis, changing grip for different shots?
Yes, in tennis there's big grip changes, but you have a lot of time for that.
Yeah, so that's very much just part of the game that everyone changes their grip?
Yes, I think most players change pretty much grip and have big grip changes in tennis.
Right, I see. Yeah, because if you look at most top table tennis players, there are a few exceptions, but most of them will only have a tiny grip change between forehand and backhand just because there isn't really the time.
Except for Timo Boll.
Yeah, I know. He has a big change, doesn't he?
Yeah, but you're right. If you look at the Chinese, they have...
Yeah, the Chinese, very, very small amount
very
of
small,
change.
yeah.
Right, well, I mean, we're coming pretty much to the end of the interview. It's really flown by. This has been really great talking to you. What I'm doing is every week I ask my guest if they have a top tip to share with the audience, something that perhaps has been told to them by a coach that's made a big difference to their game, or anything that they've particularly been working on that they think they'd like to share. Have you got a top tip for us, Jesper?
I do. I think I have two tips.
Okay, brilliant. Go for it.
I think the first one is that I think serve training is highly underrated. I think to my level, for example, I have very good serves compared to to the level of my other aspects of my game, and that helps me a lot because it's not that fun to do a lot of serve training, but I think to a great level, it's very important to have great serves, to be
Yeah,
deceptive and to have be able to put a lot of spin in it, and it's going to help you in your third shot. And yeah, it's just very important.
Is that something that you've spent a lot of time working on
Yeah,
then?
I've done a lot of serve training.
And is that just on your own with a bucket of
Yeah,
balls practicing serves? Yeah.
yeah, and also if I would give um, a second tip, I think that's probably most for beginners, but I think just learning what to think in different situations is probably what took me to another level. I mean, if you're returning serves, uh, kind of the order of thought is it's kind of hard to explain. But for example, if someone is serving, I've learned that first I have to look for the half long, and if it's not half long, then I have to move forward, because in the beginning I was kind of I set my mind to, okay, now I'm going to do a short return, and then it was a long serve and I was pushing a long ball, or now I'm going to loop and then it was a short return. I mean, so it's I think there's an order of things you have to think about in the beginning, and learning that is very important, I think.
Okay, so it's working out what you need to watch for when you're returning serves.
Yes, for example, or if you're serving yourself, then kind of doing your serve and then being ready for if you do one type of serve, then you know the return is probably going to be here, and then what I'm going to do next, I'm going to loop with a great direction of just being able to think about what is most effective for winning the point. I think that's what's helping me a lot these days.
Okay, so you're trying to think one or two steps ahead all of the time.
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that. It's basically training to think about the right things all the time. I think that's the most important.
Right. Brilliant. Well, it's been great chatting to you, Jesper.
Thank you.
I wanted to know if have you got a website or anything like that?
On Facebook, I have kind of what do you call a fan page,
Okay.
and I think that's basically it.
What's the URL for that?
What did you say?
What's the URL, the address for the Facebook page?
Oh,
How can
you
people
just
find
do a
that?
search for Jesper Ratzer on Facebook, and then it pops up. It's the athlete one.
Ah, okay. Right, and it's Jesper, not Jesper, I assume.
Jesper.
Yeah, but is it pronounced Jesper?
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Oh, I didn't notice.
um, great. And what's next for you? What kind of tournaments have you got coming up? What are you training for at the moment?
We have the European Championships in the end of November, and obviously I want to be in shape for that tournament, and also the table tennis. I want to be really good in table tennis before that tournament, so that so that I'm more stable, so that I know that I'm not gonna lose the table tennis. I want to be really good in table tennis before that tournament. That's
Sure.
my
And I
first
guess
goal right now.
the table tennis really gives you a decent bit of head start if you can get some points from that being the first event, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think if I'm able to win the table tennis, I don't think there's any player who can beat me in the world right now. So that's why I think it's pretty important for me.
Yeah. Is there anyone kind of up and coming that's snapping at your heels at the moment?
Yeah, there's some young Austrian. There's a young Austrian, and also there's a brand new Slovenian guy, a very talented, very physical player from Slovenia coming up. So there's some good players coming up.
Okay, so you're keeping your eyes on them.
Oh yeah,
Right. Well, it's been brilliant talking to you. I wish you the best of luck at the Europeans.
thank you, Ben.
You'll have to let us know how you get on, and I'll share it with you with the audience if I see it coming up on Facebook or anything.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool, brilliant. It's been great talking to you, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye, Jesper.
Bye.
Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that one. Huge thanks to Jesper for taking the time to come on the show and share some of his thoughts and experiences with us. I think that was probably the most fun I've had doing an interview. I really like talking to Jesper, and it's great to to hear his story of getting involved in table tennis and being able to compare and contrast it to all of the other sports that he plays. It's just really fascinating stuff. There's one big thing that I want to draw out from that interview, and that's to do with the whole aspect of spin. So for Jesper, who's played a lot of tennis and badminton, he's very used to playing these kind of racket sports, but table tennis separates itself from those because of spin. And he said in particular it's very different to badminton, where there's very, very little spin at all. It's just hitting the shuttle when it's very flat and you can just watch it, and there's no rotation, side spin, back spin, top spin, any of that. Table tennis is all about spin, and that was the realization that Jesper had, that people that can control this spin could really just dominate the game and spin him off simply because he didn't understand the spin. So it doesn't matter if you're really good at hitting big forehands or anything like that, because if you're not able to understand spin, how to generate spin, how to deal with your opponent's spin, then you're never going to get into a situation where you can use your shots anyway. And I really liked what he said about how he was able to overcome it simply by just getting the experience and playing against lots of different people in leagues, players that play in different styles. He mentioned something about how he was trying at first to come up with kind of systems and structures. If they do this, I have to do this. And that's something that I know Sam of the Expert in a Year Challenge was trying to implement as well, where he was saying, right, if Ben does this side spin, I need to go around it this way, and it's going to try and jump that way. And even though that can logically seem like a good thing to do, it just doesn't really work out. It needs to be automatic, subconscious, and you need to just learn it from watching and absorbing the way that the spin affects the ball. And that's something that if you've been playing table tennis for a long time, you'll just be doing naturally. But if you are new to the game, you really need to get your head around how spin works. And the only way to do it is to play with people that do maximize spin. So if you're just playing against a lot of recreational players with dead bats that are hitting the ball flat, and then you come up against these heavy spin players, you're going to be in for a shock. So you need to get yourself in an environment like Jesper did, where you're in a club with serious players with proper bats, applying spin to the ball, and that's when you can really start to get your head down and understand the real game of proper table tennis that involves generating your own spin, dealing with your opponent's spin, and just getting your whole head around what spin does to the ball, because it's so extreme compared to sports like tennis where the spin is just so much less. So thank you so much for spending 43 minutes listening to this show. I really appreciate that you are taking time out of your day to listen to the podcast and check out the guests. I hope that you are enjoying the guests that I've had on recently. I've had obviously Jesper this week. It was Chris Main the week before, Adam Gittings the week before that. I'm always up for hearing your suggestions. If there are anyone or any coaches, players, people that you'd like me to get on the show, do drop me an email. You can do that at ben@experttabletennis.com, and I will try my best to get those people on the show that you want to hear, because that's what it's all about, connecting you with experts who are going to share their stories and help you to improve your own game. That's all for this week. I'll be back in a week's time. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Use Facebook, Twitter to share it with your friends. And I'll see you in a week's time. This has been the Expert Table Tennis Podcast with me, Ben Larcombe.